Well, it's Pride Month, and for the first time ever, some Catholic schools in Ontario, like this one in Waterloo, are flying the rainbow flag. So do we think this goes far enough to promote inclusion?
I mean, I would say overall, like, it's something, but does it promote overall inclusion? You just pointed it out there, Cyn, in your intro. There are not that many Catholic school boards that are adopting the same plan. In fact, there are many right here in Ontario that were like, actually, no, we're not going to raise the pride flag. So does this do enough? I'm sure it does something, but I can only imagine for those students who are part of the LGBTQ2+ community, even the fact that this debate of should we raise it, should we not raise it, it's actually been happening over many weeks, perhaps even over many months. So the fact that there was even a debate on the your very existence, should we not raise the flag? I can't imagine how painful that process has been for those students and their families. And I'll take a step out here. You kind of have to ask the bigger picture if you're part of the Catholic board, which is, what side of history do you want to be on? There are some things that age well, but there's a whole lot that doesn't. And the othering of groups of people in the long arc of history does not usually fare well.
Nicole on Facebook wrote us and said, well, I'm a lesbian and I grew up during a time where it really wasn't accepted during my young years. Personally, when I see a flag, I think, okay, I'm in safe territory here. Every tiny bit of solidarity helps. And I thank you for writing that, Nicole. And I imagine there are a number of students that do feel more included as a result of seeing this flag. But like you said, Mel, it's kind of this massive contradiction that's very difficult to ignore, because in one breath you're saying, yeah, we're going to support you and include you by flying this flag. And then in the next, however, your very existence is considered a sin because you are contrary to natural law and intrinsically disordered. And that contradiction is so hard to ignore, not to mention that the Toronto Catholic School Board, they did have these meetings and they voted to fly the flag, the pride flag, for the month of June, but they removed its LGBT youth line, this outlet that they had provided during a pandemic. Like when people needed it most, they removed that line. Now they brought it back after severe criticism, but that just speaks to the contradiction that we're facing. And you do wonder, a writer in The Walrus last year sort of posed the question, at issue is not whether such schools should exist, but whether the rest of us should continue to pay for them. And we pay for them in 3 provinces.
Yeah, I mean, it's a publicly funded institution, and in terms of publicly funded institutions, and we're talking about gay rights, which are human rights.
Yes.
Then publicly funded institutions should be expected to honor human rights. Except, when you have the Archbishop, one of the Archbishops saying that he disagrees with this decision, calling it political, calling it a lifestyle. That, to me, is very harmful language that perpetuates a lot of harm for the LGBTQ+ community. And I go back to Nicole, our viewer, who wrote and said about feeling safe. I want to acknowledge that there are lots of students out there, yes, who are happy about the flag and that they are feeling seen. But in terms of true safety, not when somebody with that much authority in the Catholic infrastructure of this country is making statements like that. I don't think safety is achievable yet. Not yet.
It's interesting you raised that point, because I think Michael would agree with you. He wrote to us on Facebook and said, not for me, I don't care. I grew up in the Catholic Church, and as a gay man, I never want to be associated with it ever. And that includes whether or not they fly our flag on their premises. The Catholic Church is still not supportive of us. They continue to denounce our lifestyle whilst hiding their own indiscretions within their institutions. They don't want to normalize us in society. They demonize it. It is a hard pass for me. Michael, thank you for sharing your words. And I like they resonate with me deeply. I've been having a really hard time with Catholicism for quite a while now. Actually, maybe most of my life. I was raised Catholic, and I want to share a quick story, which is that not that long ago, someone wrote to me through my website, who's a viewer of our show, and they were very, very upset with me. And I can't remember what the episode was, but I had been criticizing the Catholic Church, and she said she was very disappointed and very upset. So I wrote her back, and I said, I'm sorry if my words have upset you, but in case I haven't made it clear before, I was raised Catholic, and I have people I love who are Catholic, but at the same time, I also have people who I love in my life who have been deeply harmed, sexually harmed by members of the Catholic institution. And I'm talking about leadership. I'm talking about teachers. I'm talking about priests. And I'm talking about other types of Catholic leaders. And she wrote me back and she said, oh, thank you. And she was had softened her language and was like, actually, people I know and care about too, particularly people in the LGBTQ plus community, have been harmed as well. And while I appreciated her note back, I couldn't help but wonder, at what point, if you recognize that a system that you uphold is harming people that you care about, at what point are you actually complicit as you continue to uphold that system? And I can't help but think that, I've said this to my mom before, I don't know why you can't at some point, if you're a Catholic person who believes in the teachings of Jesus, you can't really rise up and get together and criticize or leave or threaten to leave this institution. We need to be able to criticize systems. We talk about this all the time. What, I wonder, could come out of the ashes of that criticism? But it's going to take people to stop supporting these systems, and I think it starts with Catholic schools.
Well, Cynthia, I love everything that you just said, but can I just say one thing quickly? Like, this is a 2,000-year-old institution, and the church has had councils. They have had reformations, schisms that challenge official doctrines, over these 2,000 years. I wonder if it's high time for another.
We are asking huge questions here about the Catholic Church. I was born and raised in the Catholic Church, and I guess for me, raising a daughter who I have put into the Catholic system, there's a lot I'm grappling with the same way that you are, Cynthia, but it feels sometimes so big, to your point, Jess, that this is such a huge, rich, old institution, and it is ready for an evolution. And I think every time that it pushes back and it fights back against things like a pride flag, or every time the Pope says something where we accept gay people, but we don't really, I just sit there and I'm like, are you trying to manage your own irrelevance and obsolescence here? Because that's the most frustrating part about trying to raise a child, where there are teachings and then there's an institution. And those two things are very different. There's no one who can still point to anywhere in the Gospels that Jesus taught that homosexuality was wrong. That's an institutional idea. That is not a teaching idea. So in this house...
But it's what they uphold in the system of Catholics.
Sure.
We had the whole problem with the sex ed curriculum. They didn't want to revitalize it. They wanted to pull kids out. A lot of people did. And I just think, again, if you participate in that system, I guess you have to look in your own heart and soul and go, what... I knew people who died by suicide who were closeted at the time I grew up. And I hope things have changed and there's enough support. But part of it is what these systems contribute. And again, we do need to start really looking at systems that uphold certain ideologies that we don't align with anymore.
Well, to your point, though, it's people within those systems, right? Cynthia, you talked about your experience and your history with the Catholic Church. Mel, your ongoing history with the Catholic Church. I feel like that most of the Catholic people I know are not people who are against the LGBTQ plus community. I feel like those are the people who are mortified by the scandals and the grossness that has come out from the Catholic Church, things that they've tried to cover up, the disgusting acts perpetuated on children by their leaders, as Cynthia, you were alluding to. And I think most Catholics do not want to be associated with that and would rather their church and their religion have a better reputation. So my question is, if you're within the fold of Catholicism, why aren't you going on Sunday and being like, yo, priest, what's up here? Can't we do something? Doesn't it take change from within, and not just the school board? I'm talking about people like you and you, Mel, and people like you, Cynthia, and your mom and my in-laws, Yasik. I wonder when that movement's going to start.
It's a great question. I take a look at my mother's generation because you bring up that generation, because Filipinos are not Catholics, they are super Catholics. And you know, there are a lot of people who will, and certainly my family and my mother's generation will argue that the church is far from perfect, but it has also done so much good, and they are willing to separate teachings from the institution and do so much work outside of the church, but with the spirit of the church, if that makes any sense. There is a generational shift, but when I do think about the bigger picture, I do take it upon myself that I am my daughter's first teacher. So we do teach inclusion in this household. We do teach that homophobia is wrong. We have in our family gay and lesbian and trans relatives. And so for Marqueza and for me, my whole goal is you have to be able to question and challenge those institutions, whether it's your doctor, whether it's your
Mel,
priest,
can I
whether
just
it's your
play
church.
that out? Mel, let me just play that out, because I want to see what that looks like practically. So you're teaching Marqueza something at home where you're like, no, it's wrong when people say that gay is a lifestyle and it's political. So then she goes to school, she's like, Mommy is my first teacher, and this is what Mommy taught me. And someone in Catholic school says, this happened and this is what we believe. Now, if Marqueza speaks up and says, no, teacher, you're wrong. What you're teaching is hate and it's harmful and I don't stand for it. What then happens next? Like, that's, I think, the question, right? What parents do in that situation.
So she fails religion.
Okay.
She fails religion, maybe. Maybe she fails religion class, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm not... I will support inclusion. And so for my daughter, if she speaks up, I wish, and that will be, of course, the lesson. Her voice does have power, and we have beliefs, and we have conviction in this family. The flip side is if one voice and hopefully many voices band together, for sure that is going to have more impact. But if I actually believe that that's going to have an impact on the Pope, for example, and she's right here, of course. Yeah, of course, she wants to talk about it. Is that the papacy... Okay, sweetheart. She wants to show me her schoolwork. Is it religion? Just kidding. What impact does that have on the greater power, which is the multi-billion-dollar business of the Vatican? You know, like, there's a lot that we have to talk about here, but I do encourage her to use her voice. And if she fails religion, she fails religion.